Hey there, U.S. historians. What I'm going to ask you to do, you're going to need to take notes on this. Okay, so if you want to open your notebook and flip to the section of your notes where you're keeping track of core, right? Remember critical online reasoning. Okay, last time we talked about information pollution. Okay, this time, if you want to title your notes here, the most important term that you need to know is the concept of lateral reading. Okay, and we'll talk about what that means. Okay, so make sure you title your notes. Make sure you keep all of your notes together in one section. That'll be helpful for the assessment that we do. Okay. So remember on Tuesday, what we did is I asked you guys to find examples of misinformation and disinformation, okay, on social media. Okay, so we'll just take a quick look here at what you guys found. Okay, so some of it is, almost comical, right? Like the fact the reporting that the bean is melting, apparently, right? The statue in Millennium Park in Chicago. Okay. Other things that people had posted, right? Oftentimes there's like sports information of false information of like players changing teams. Okay. And then there's kind of more harmful information. Okay. So this is actually a congresswoman who was blaming kind of the wildfires in California on kind of like solar companies and saying like, this was resulting in like the reflections from uh, like solar panels, right? And basically trying to kind of make an argument against clean energy, okay, which is just kind of blatantly false, right? Which kind of dictates like governmental policy, okay. And then let's see here, eighth period. Let's see here. There's like, okay, then we have a good example of like conspiracy theories, right? Of like the Earth being flat, right? Flat Earthers, okay. And then this one here of Mountain Dew coming out with hot dogs, which just sounds awful. Okay, all right. Let's do this here. Boop. Okay. So these are kind of the two terms that we definitely need to know. Okay, so if you want to section your notes that way, okay, on one side, on the left-hand side, there's the concept of vertical reading. Okay, so what's going to be helpful there, right? Because we're going to use this term quite a bit. Is think math here. Okay, so vertical meaning up and down, right? Sorry, it's not a great line. Okay, so you are basically staying on the source, right? And oftentimes this is what students typically have been taught to do, right? Is okay, like figure out who's behind the source, okay? Figure out who the organization is, the author, what their credentials are, okay? To try and determine if it's reliable, okay? And so historically, like that's how students, you've been taught how to do this, right? The problem is, like, I don't necessarily care what a like illegitimate source has to say about itself, right? Because they can just make stuff up. Okay. So to be honest, when you stop and think about it, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Okay. What makes more sense and what I'm going to have you guys do is laterally read. Okay. So lateral, going side to side. So if you're envisioning here, a web browser, right? You leave the page, right? So notice my tabs up here. Okay. So you leave the page and you open a new tab. I'm going to do this. Okay, go back. I want, boop. Okay. And so then what you're going to do, right, this is kind of what I told you on Tuesday, is like you Google the source, right? You examine what do other sources have to say about the organization that is behind the website you're looking at. Okay. So that's what I'm going to kind of practice here today. Now, you don't need to write this part down, right? This is just an observation. So at this point, you should have out the lateral versus vertical reading guide. Okay, and we're going to examine two sources here together. And what I'm going to ask you to do as I do this, okay, or you can kind of do it on your own, is answer these questions. Okay. So the first site that we're going to take a look at is againstmalaria.com. Okay, so here, right, standard kind of layout for a website. Okay, and so if we're going to do vertical reading, okay, you kind of need to look at, all right, first thing, who is behind this information. Okay, so places that you could look, right, is at the very top. And so it says the Against Malaria Foundation. Okay, other places you can look is down at the bottom, right? So this tells us some of the companies that partner with this corporation or with this foundation, right? So we see, a bunch of ones that I'm probably not familiar with, of like Ansono, Vestergaard, okay. But then you have Citibank. I don't know what Sumitomo Chemical is, Microsoft, Speedo, okay. So that's the first place you can look, is just the top or the bottom. Okay, so I would kind of write that part down in your notes when we're talking about vertical reading, because you do need to figure out who's behind the source. Okay, now the other place to look is the About Us page. Okay, so in this case, it's like, all right, I click on the About Us, okay, and it kind of takes me to a variety of different things here, right? So, okay, I'm going to click on like, okay, well, who runs this anti-malaria foundation, right? So we have trustees. I'm just kind of scanning for information, right? So I don't necessarily know who these people are, right? So, okay, I'm just going to click on one here. And so this is the CEO. Let's see. He has a strategy and consulting, event management, publishment. Okay. Chemical engineering. Okay. So I don't know. Like, he's talking about being like a football player and all that. I don't know if that's necessarily relevant, right? Maybe chemical engineering might be helpful for anti-malaria. Okay, but that's kind of what we have here, right? Of what we've kind of learned about this organization. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so then other things you can click on is their history, right? So the guy I just clicked on, right? The CEO, Rob Mather. Okay, it talks about like kind of his personal story, right? Like talking about like swim foundations and like that he was a swimmer and kind of used this, okay? But then he wanted to raise funds in a different way, okay? So he started Against Malaria, right? So this doesn't really give me a lot about this organization, right? Then it says, okay, they partner with different organizations. So, okay, Citi, Microsoft. Okay, so that explains some of the stuff down below, okay? So then what we got to do is we got to do lateral reading. Okay. So what I'm going to do then is I Google the source, right? So I'm going to open up a new tab, that little plus, and go Against Malaria Foundation. Okay. Now I don't want to go to the first source here because that's just going to take me exactly back to where I was. Okay. So a great place to start, and I know, right, you guys have been trained like, ooh, Wikipedia, bad. We're going to talk about that isn't necessarily the case. Okay. So I'm going to click on Wikipedia to start. Okay, so things that it's telling me here, right? It is based out of the United Kingdom of Great Britain. Okay, provides insect nets, right? Mosquito nets to prevent the spread of malaria. Okay, it has raised $425 million. Okay, so that's quite a bit of money, right? Has distributed 36.3 million nets. So notice this has told me way more already than kind of clicking about the About Us, because like they were trying to personalize it there of like this CEO's kind of story, right? Here it is, like, okay, it kind of corroborates that of like he organized swim to raise money. Okay. So we have those components to it. All right. Okay. And then they reached a milestone of raising 500 million. And so now, like, okay, other things it's telling me, they've had over 919,000 donations from 185,000 people in 189 countries. So, like, this is a pretty big thing here, right? It kind of sounded like it was a dad that just started doing like swim fundraisers, but this has kind of grown to be something much more significant, right? So note, that has told me a lot more, okay, about the source than just vertically reading. Okay. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is like continue on, look at the source and answer those questions. Okay. If you need to pause the video, go ahead. Okay. Now the other one we're going to look at, okay, is TikTok. Okay. Now TikTok's a little bit more challenging because like it takes a minute. Like you got to kind of like, like you don't always necessarily know where these sources are coming from. Okay. So this is one. So TikTok, I believe, is blocked at school. Okay. So what I did is I took this video. Okay. This is like the link to it. Hold on. Okay. So we're going to take a second. We'll just watch the video here. It's like super short. That's how TikTok rolls. Okay. So note here, like, okay, this is something that you'd kind of expect to see on TikTok where it's like, okay. Um, they're trying to kind of warn about the dangers of artificial sugars, right? So the way to vertically read here is, okay, I'm going to click on this Dr. Mercola, okay, and see like what can I find about him, right? So this would be the way to vertically read on TikTok, right? Is go to their kind of account page, right? And so things I can find is, okay, like he's got over 20,000 followers. Okay, so I mean he has some influence here for sure. Okay, it says he is a osteopathic physician, and he's the founder of one of the number one natural health sites. Okay. Now I could go further right and click on mercola.com, right? But before I do that here, okay. So then I kind of look at his posts, right? Of what is he posting? Okay. So it seems like we have like homemade ketchup, homemade blue cheese. So this kind of vibes what we're talking about of like, okay, like trying to create natural health stuff, strong muscles, and improve your quality of life. So his posts, for the most part, like I don't see anything that's like out of the ordinary, like political posts, things that are kind of calling for specific political action. You're talking about ultra processed foods. So this kind of goes with what we're talking about here, right? If I go to his website here, okay, let's see. He has 2.5 million social media followers. Okay. But no, like this, hold on here. This is like charging me, right? So he is like making money off of this. Okay. Other things it's told me is, okay, he's been on, I'm trying to remember the icon here, if that's like Good Morning Today, Fox News, The Oz Show. Okay. Let's see. Not interested in paying. Okay. So remember, right, places I can find is at the top here. Okay. But it's not giving me any kind of like about him stuff here. Interesting. And now it's making me kind of want to pay again. Okay. So there's really a limited amount of stuff that I can get vertically reading, okay, about Dr. Mercola here. Okay. So then what I got to do is laterally read. Okay. Now remember, okay, that I got to open a new tab and Google. So I'm going to go Dr. Mercola. Okay. All right, so this is the same guy here, Mercola.com. Okay, so we're gonna see, now I wanna go to Wikipedia, right, because this is his website again. So you wanna try and avoid the first one because usually it's their website, which is just taking you back to vertical reading. Okay, so it says he's an alternative medicine proponent, okay, internet business personality. Okay, so he's not just a doctor, right? This is a business, and we kind of corroborated or got that vibe from his website. He's trying to sell stuff. Okay. Ooh, he markets largely unproven dietary supplements and medical devices. Okay. He's advocated unproven and pseudoscientific. Okay. Now, this is kind of one of the good things about Wikipedia is it's like, okay, maybe you don't know what pseudoscience means. It consists of statements, claims, practices, but are incompatible with the scientific method, right? So like they're not really following science, right? He's opposed to vaccines. Let's see here. He promotes scientifically discredited views about medicine and disease. Okay. So note, right, during the COVID pandemic, he spread misinformation about the virus, okay, anti-vaccine information, okay. So what I'm going to ask you to do, right, is fill out this worksheet, okay. So look at both these sources, both vertically and laterally, okay, and jot down what information can you get from these sources, because this is what you're going to have to do for your summative assessment at the end of the semester. Okay, so that's it for today. Okay, when you are done, you need to take out your study guide and work on answering the questions, because we have quite a bit that you can already answer. Okay, have a wonderful day, have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. Thanks.